I take pride in telling you that I am a student of Professor Usha Malviya Madam, former head of this department. A great teacher and excellent researcher, Professor Malviya has established the optoelectronics laboratory in our department. We are thankful to her for accepting our invitation in her busy schedule of publishing literary works of her great mother, former Education Minister of UP, Didi Sarup Kumari Bakshi. We fondly call Ma'am as moving encyclopedia. Listening her is always a feast. I invite you, Ma'am, Professor Malviya.
Evening to all of you. Can you listen to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, firstly, I thank the organizers for inviting me to this meeting. Now, light, as we all know, is one of the most precious gifts of nature. Imagine what our lives would be if there was no light. We would cease to exist. Today is the International Day of Light and is a day of special significance as it marks the first successful operation of the laser in the year 1960. The laser, which has contributed immensely, not only to optics, but to many diverse fields such as medicine, industry, military, science, and information technology. In the field of optics, besides its numerous applications, the laser has brought to light spectacular optical phenomena that were unknown before. So let us refresh our memory regarding some of these. Now, it was in the year 1961 when Franken and co-workers discovered that when a ruby laser beam is focused onto a quartz slab, then the outgoing beam contains, in addition to the input frequency, a new frequency that was the second harmonic of the input one. This effect can be easily explained on the basis of the polarization, which is the dipole moment per unit volume, and which according to conventional optics is related to the electric field strength E of the light wave by a linear relation, that is P is equal to chi E, where chi is the polarizability of the medium. Now, this is a relation which is very familiar in conventional optics. But when E, the electric field strength of the beam, becomes sufficiently large, then the relation between P and E becomes nonlinear. And now if we assume that omega is the frequency of the incident radiation on the slab, then a little mathematics would show that polarizations are induced in the medium which oscillate at frequencies omega, 2 omega, 3 omega, and so on. And hence the output light will contain all these frequencies. That is the fundamental, its second harmonic, its third harmonic. Now this harmonic generation, which shows the creation of new frequencies in the output which were not present in the input side, is a non-linear optical phenomena. Further, if there are two frequencies omega 1 and omega 2 present in the input side, then the output side will contain, in addition to the harmonics, the sum and difference frequencies, that is omega 1 plus omega 2 and omega 1 minus omega 2 also. And now if from all these frequencies we want to isolate the particular one of interest, supposing it's the second harmonic or it's the sum frequency, then there is a phase matching condition which has to be satisfied for that particular frequency. And this condition will isolate that frequency from all other processes by concentrating the input power into that frequency of interest at the expense of the other components, which will automatically die out. And so we get a strong intensity second harmonic or some frequency, whichever we want, coming out from the exit end of the slab. Now, all these optical effects could not be observed from conventional light sources. So a natural question that arises is why? Why did we have to wait for lasers before these nonlinear optical phenomena could be experimentally discovered? The answer is that these manifest themselves when the field strength of the light source is comparable in magnitude to that of the atomic fields of the medium through which the light propagates. Now, since the conventional light sources have very weak field strengths, so they don't meet this criteria. On the contrary, lasers have strong field strengths, which are comparable to the atomic fields, and therefore, when a laser light is used to illuminate the medium, then nonlinear optical effects can be experimentally observed. Now, there is another very interesting nonlinear phenomena, and that is the self-focusing of a laser beam. We know from conventional optics that the refractive index is a function of frequency. But if the light is the laser, then in addition to its frequency dependence, the refractive index becomes a function of the intensity of light also. And now we have a laser beam. We know that its intensity is not constant over its cross section. It peaks at the axis and then it falls off gradually away from the axis. And therefore, the refractive index is maximum at the beam axis and it decreases further away, which amounts to saying that the velocity of light is fastest away from the axis than at the axis, and therefore a plane wavefront of light as it traverses through the medium becomes concave and it finally contracts towards the axis, after which it propagates as a narrow light fiber, provided the power in the laser beam is above a certain critical value, that is pre-critical, and this critical power is the power at which the self-focusing action due to the intensity-dependent refractive index is exactly balanced by the spreading of the beam due to diffraction. So when the laser power is above this critical value, then self-focusing occurs. Now, stimulated Raman scattering. This is another interesting nonlinear phenomenon. We know that we are familiar with the Raman effect, which is an effect whereby light is scattered from a medium with a change in frequency. This change in frequency is equal to a transition frequency of the medium. In the original experiment, monochromatic light was used, which was a non-laser, and it was found that the bulk of the input power, that is more than 99%, was found in the Rayleigh scattering, which has a frequency equal to that of the input radiation. The Stokes and the anti-Stokes radiation, which had frequencies below and above the incident radiation, were very weak in intensity. The importance of the Raman effect lies in the fact that by an careful analysis of the Raman spectra, we can determine the structure of the molecules. But as we see that Stokes and the anti-Stokes radiation are weak. So can we increase the intensity? Here comes the answer that if the conventional light source is replaced by a high intensity laser, which is generally known as the pump, then in that case, amplification of the Stokes wave results. The Stokes wave rises in intensity in an exponential manner with a similar decrease in the intensity of the pump, and which means that energy is transferred from the pump to the Stokes wave. Now, this rate of increase in intensity of the Stokes radiation is proportional to the amount of spontaneous Raman radiation that was present in the cavity. In fact, it is this spontaneous Raman radiation which stimulates or induces the medium to emit the Stokes photons. And now, since we are using a high pulsed, very high power pulse laser, so in the beginning there is a sufficient quantity of spontaneous Raman scattering which can stimulate the process still further. And so when the gain overcomes the losses of the cavity, then amplification, intense amplification of the Stokes radiation results, and we get a high intensity coherent Stokes radiation with high beam directionality coming out in a direction of propagation of the laser pump. The anti-Stokes radiation is also intense, but it is emitted in a conical shell whose axis is the propagation direction of the pump. Now, these optical non-linearities, they are not the only spectacular phenomena. They are not the only wonders that optics has to offer. There are many more. But of course, we can't go into all of them. But I would especially like to mention one, and that is the realization of the negative refractive index materials. It was in the year 1967 when Victor Veselago, a Russian scientist, conceived the idea of a material for which had a negative electrical permittivity and a negative value of the magnetic permeability. That is, epsilon and mu were both negative for a particular frequency. And he concluded that such a medium would exhibit a negative index of refraction. Now, Veselago's notion was enough to turn the world of optics on its head. And since no such naturally occurring material was known at that time, which could have both epsilon mu negative in the same frequency or same frequency range, therefore his conjecture faded into obscurity. Till it was in the mid-1990s when Pendry and his co-workers, they actually succeeded in structuring, engineering these artificial materials. And Pendry was able to show, he stated, that these negative refractive index materials, this material behaves like a super lens. That is a lens which has got the capability of imaging very, very fine structures and fine detail which are less than the wavelength of the light used. Now I think I shall conclude now by saying that light dispels darkness. Not only visual, but the darkness that prevailed before all these wonderful effects were discovered. And so if light dispels darkness, then why not look up to that supreme light power, that infinite reality, who is beyond time and space, who is beyond life and death, and pray to him to shine his light on the darkness and the gloom that has engulfed humanity in the form of the coronavirus, to end our suffering, to end our pain, and to take us towards a bright, illuminated path. This is my prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, ma'am, for introducing all of us. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, madam, for introducing all of us to stimulated Raman scattering, harmonic generation, self-focusing, super lens, and metamaterial. Many chats are coming for your appreciation, ma'am. They all are enjoying your talk, and we would like to listen you again and again for a longer time after the pandemic. So we thank.
I forgot to mention the soliton and the optical phase conjugation, where we can remove the distortions from wave fronts, and the soliton, which is the a light pulse that travels through an optical fiber without spreading, without broadening, and the dispersion is done away with. The broadening due to dispersion is done away with, and very high bit rates of communication can be achieved with a soliton-based communication line, and bit rates of the order of 1 terabit per second have been theoretically predicted. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Many people are writing. Yes, I would like to read it. Somebody wrote, Malviya ma'am is sounding prophetic on nonlinear optics. Great personality, feeling a nostalgic vibe, as I've been lucky to have attended her class. One of your students, ma'am, he has written for you. And what you have said, कि अंधकार से प्रकाश की ओर, तो गुरु का यही मैम, गुरु से यही हम लोग सीखते हैं, गा से अंधकार, रा से प्रकाश, गुरु के अंधकार से प्रकाश की ओर ले जाते हैं. And with these words, I hand over the mic to Sneha or Sonu, whoever is going to tell some results.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I would like to say that thousands of candles can be lighted by a single candle, and the life of candle will not be shortened. So it means that knowledge never decreases by sharing. So thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving to the results. First of all, let me tell you that I'm just making a request to you guys that don't lose heart. अगर आप